What is a software? When you first think of it, it sounds like very complicated, but it's actually just think of one thing at a time. So you have code, so you might have like one piece of code, so many pieces of files of code, all put together, a huge bunch of program working in sync with other piece of code. So like the huge code base actually makes a software. So we'll see that in detail, the one thing at a time. So you know how code looks, but when you actually look at it, it's very scary. But in real world, once you learn one thing at a time, coding is as simple as learning anything. So these are the apps that you might have seen earlier. We used to call softwares. Now, for the modernizing reasons, we call it as an app. So you might know VLC Media Player and Word that you use in your computers. This Apple Music and Spotify you might see in your smartphones. The same the case for WhatsApp and Google Maps. Also, there are softwares and apps for TV. So you have Netflix and Amazon Prime Video and so many other apps for TVs too. The OS that you use, that could be your computer OS or your smartphone OS, even that is a software. But OS is a huge software. Like the size of it, the architecture of it, the effort that goes into it, it's actually huge. It also has so many functionalities and it's a very complex software. But at the end of the day, it is also a software. So types of software, as you see, application software is what we use in our everyday use, like the VLC, Word, WhatsApp, whatever the list we saw earlier. There is system software which actually deals with your system and more related to handling of your system resources, your hardwares. So OS is one, and there is something called device drivers. People of earlier generation might know device drivers, but I'll have a topic on device drivers later. There is utilities. So people who use Windows might know that there is a utility called check disk, which checks if the disk is healthy, if there's any sector that's been damaged. So that's an utility. And there is a defragmenter utility in Windows that is to defragment, which means to fragment the sectors which have been separated apart. We'll also see that in detail in the upcoming videos. So software execution flow, when you think of it, see, a user through an input, which is basically a hardware. So even the mouse movement I do, a user does it, right? I do it through my trackpad or a mouse. So that's the hardware. I give an input, I make this movement. So the software, it takes the input from a user through a hardware, and then the software again gives certain commands to the OS. But OS has one critical element which is called the kernel. So this is the core element of the OS, which handles the OS and the resources and the hardware. And finally, through the kernel, the software is able to send an output.